Hey everyone, and welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network's continued coverage of Hurricane Florence. We are going to be bringing you the latest updates for hours, and we will be on a lot tomorrow too. So definitely stay tuned. So great to see you guys
everyone,
all
and welcome to Right Side
watching
Broadcasting
Network's continued coverage of Hurricane Florence. We are going to be so glad to have you guys all watching in the chat room and hope you were doing well. Sorry for a little bit of echo there. Real quick, wanted to shout out some people in the chat room. It looks like our moderators are here. Real Frank in Florida is in the house. Thank you so much for being here. And Tom O'Neill, one of our reporters and also a moderator, thank you for joining, Tom. And let's see, also checking on some members, Ruth Jensen is in the house. Thank you so much, Ruth, for being here. And also wanted to shout out everyone over on Facebook, on Twitter, on Periscope. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Just give it 1 second. Forgot we have to check that. I'll try to fix that for tomorrow.
Okay.
Should be good.
We were fixing our radars there. Sorry about that. And also wanted to shout out some regular viewers, Rick Bulow and Swoosh for Trump. Thank you for being here, for tuning in. And also wanted to check and see who is over on Facebook. Just going to read some first names. It looks like Denise is here. Cindy, Joanne, Deborah, Christine, Denise, Jenny, Pamela, Georgia, Trish, Lauren, Linda, Roxanne, Becky, and Donna. Thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate you guys for tuning in. We have some really awesome new graphics that our CEO, Joe Seals, made. So you'll be seeing some more of those throughout the night to enjoy. So first, I am going to kind of give you guys some information from the Washington Post. This is actually city by city forecasts that Hurricane Florence is going to bring just to different cities, like I said. And also, if you have any information that I may have missed, please send it to me over on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN. If you are in any of these areas, hopefully you've already evacuated, but if for some reason you haven't and you already have video or pictures of the weather, maybe some heavy rain and winds coming down, please send it to me on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN and I will share it with everyone. But hopefully if you were in those areas, you have already gotten out. So from the Washington Post, Hurricane Florence is within 36 hours of slamming ashore in the Carolinas, where it will unleash damaging winds and enormous amounts of rain. More than 15 million people are under storm watches and warnings. Now, we're just going to go through a guide to what cities in different areas can expect. So in Virginia, Norfolk, gusty showers will begin Thursday, becoming heavy squalls overnight Thursday into Friday. And they're accompanied by onshore easterly winds gusting to 50 miles per hour. And the rain will taper off gradually Saturday, with winds slackening Saturday afternoon. 2 to 4 inches of rain is possible. Also wanted to shout out, on YouTube, we just got a $5 donation from Pamela M. Thank you so much, Pamela, for your support. Really appreciate that. And that'll help us be able to do more broadcasts just like this and to travel to rallies. Now, we are expecting, hopefully, to travel to Phoenix, Arizona for a President Trump rally next week. Now, that has not been released officially yet, but that is just what we've heard and what we are hoping. So also more city forecasts from the Washington Post. So in Wilmington, North Carolina, now tropical storm conditions will arrive as early as mid-afternoon Thursday, with strong winds cranking up by sunset. Now the outer rain bands will begin to work onshore overnight Thursday, becoming a steady heavy rain by Friday morning. And visibility will drop off sharply on Friday as destructive winds of 70 to 100 miles per hour, gusting to 120 miles per hour roar throughout the day, accompanied by blinding rain. And good thing you caught that, Propus. Yes, Hurricane Florence did downgrade to a Category 3. I believe it was just a few hours ago. So Florence makes its closest pass noontime Friday in Wilmington, when conditions may be most severe. Now, the storm surge may cause the water at the coast to rise 4 to 6 feet above normally dry land. So winds are still tropical storm force Saturday in the range of 40 to 60 miles per hour before subsiding on Sunday. And storm total rainfall of 15 to 20 inches with isolated 30-inch amounts are possible. Widespread, possibly catastrophic flooding is expected. In Raleigh, North Carolina, tropical storm conditions possible beginning Thursday night and lasting through Saturday. Now, on Friday, winds become sustained around 30 miles per hour with gusts to 45 miles per hour before tapering off Saturday evening, and widespread 3 to 5 inches of rain totals possible with isolated spots approaching 8 inches. So in Charlotte, cloudy, breezy summertime weather through Saturday. Winds will pick up though, however, Saturday night into Sunday, gusting up to 30 to 40 miles per hour when rain is likely to move in. And rain could continue at times into early next week with at least 2 to 4 inches possible. Now, Florence has been called a once-in-a-lifetime storm. I know you're seeing that on the bottom of the screen there. So over in South Carolina, in Myrtle Beach, tropical storm conditions are arriving by late Thursday, intensifying by Friday morning as winds become sustained at 30 to 50 miles per hour and gusts to 65 miles per hour. So steady moderate squalls will rotate in throughout the day on Friday. Now, Florence's tendency to want to stall will actually result in a significant prolonged period of onshore damaging winds through the weekend. So the worst conditions will be felt Friday night, with winds becoming northerly sustained at 60 to 80 miles per hour, gusting to over 100 miles per hour. Now, the storm surge may cause the water at the coast to rise 4 to 6 feet above normally dry land. And tropical storm force winds will continue through Saturday in Myrtle Beach of 50 to 70 miles per hour before gradually tapering Sunday. Storm total rainfall may exceed a foot. So now looking at Charleston, South Carolina, winds will start to become gusty late Thursday into Friday, but may increase substantially during Saturday with gusts to 50 miles per hour and possibly much higher depending on the storm track. So rain totals will reach 4 to 8 inches. However, this is highly uncertain as the model trends bear watching for Charleston. So in Columbia, South Carolina, it's going to be relatively calm through Saturday, and then wind and rain increase Saturday night into Sunday. Now, some rain could even linger into Monday, pushing totals up to around 8 inches or so. So over in Georgia, in Savannah, so it may lie on the southern periphery of storm conditions. So the forecast here is uncertain. Tropical storm conditions could develop here Saturday night into Sunday with a period of heavy rain and strong winds. Now, wind gusts to 60 miles per hour and 1 to 2 inches of rain are a possibility. Now, looking at Atlanta, Georgia, sinking air on the periphery of Florence will result in mostly clear skies Friday and Saturday. Now, it sits in the very southwestern edge of where the storm's wind and rain might reach, possibly for a period Sunday into Monday, and the forecast here is also very uncertain. So moving on with an update from AccuWeather. Now this is very recent. So dangerous Hurricane Florence is on a path that will put millions of people at risk and threaten billions of dollars in property damage centered on the Carolinas beginning on Thursday and continuing through this weekend. Now, AccuWeather expert Dan Kotlowski said a jump in strength to a Category 5 hurricane is possible Wednesday night to Thursday before some weakening take place prior to landfall to end the week. Now, this can occur even though Florence dipped to a Category 3 strength today with maximum sustained winds of 120 miles per hour during Wednesday afternoon. So even though Florence is moving swiftly to the northwest at this time, AccuWeather meteorologists believe that the hurricane will stall and meander near the Carolina coast from Thursday night to Saturday. So as this happens, coastal areas will be bombarded with torrential rain, high winds, coastal erosion, and storm surge, not for a few hours, but possibly for a couple days. And AccuWeather founder and president Dr. Joel N. Myers said there will be extensive damage inflicted by Hurricane Florence as it drifts slowly toward the coast late this week before making landfall near the North Carolina and South Carolina border later Friday into Saturday. Winds on the east edge of the storm are going to be most effective in driving storm surge, flooding as the wind and waves pound the coast. That is one of the many factors in why AccuWeather is estimating $60 billion in economic impact and damage from Florence. And Myers also said, while other sources are monitoring the intensity of the storm, AccuWeather is focused on the overall impacts of the storm on people and their lives. The maximum damage from hurricanes is generally caused by flooding on land. Typically, the second most costly aspect of a hurricane occurs along the coast as an angry sea is driven inland due to powerful onshore winds, especially when there is a large fetch and particularly when a storm moves consistently and perpendicular to the coast. Following inland flooding and coastal damage, winds on average are often the next biggest cause of hurricane damage and economic costs. So help also might not be available for days due to the dangerous conditions for those who choose to remain behind along the coast. In total, inundation is likely in portions of eastern and southeastern North Carolina and perhaps the upper part of the South Carolina coast, with a storm surge in excess of 10 feet in some areas. And Gonzalez said, is the rally canceled tomorrow due to the hurricane? Yes, it is. Unfortunately, they were both canceled Thursday and Friday, but definitely a good thing. And it looks like I received a couple messages from you guys over on Twitter, so I'm going to check those real quick. Shout out to the British Patriot and Rick Bulow for sending those. Really appreciate those and your help. Now, if you haven't reached out to me yet on Twitter and you would like to, please don't hesitate to do so. My Twitter handle is @Alyssa RSBN. I'll throw that up for a second before switching back to our cool new graphics. So there it is, @Alyssa RSBN. If you'd like to reach out to me with more information, that would be super helpful so that I can bring you guys the most accurate information for as long as possible. So switching back, and before I move on to those articles from our viewers, I want to finish out this one. So the exact track, overall size, and forward speed of the storm will determine which locations along the coast receive the worst of Florence's damaging winds, heavy rain, and storm surge flooding. So at this time, A large northward drift along the coast is looking much less likely with Florence. However, a stall, meandering, or loop near the coast is possible prior to a westward, southwestward, or northwestward drift that would take Florence well inland. And Kotlowski said, if Florence fails to move inland right away, it could remain as a hurricane or major hurricane much longer than usual due to the proximity to warm ocean water. And a very slow or meandering movement of Florence will translate to long-duration high winds, storm surge, and demolishing wave action. So Florence may change the shape of the coastline in parts of the Carolinas, such as eroding some of the islands and carving new inlets. Some homes and businesses may actually be washed away on the barrier islands and along the immediate coast near the center of the storm and north of the storm center along the coast by dozens of miles. Strong high pressure to the north is likely to enhance winds, wave action, and coastal flooding farther north along the coast than would normally occur. Now, as a result, people from southeastern Virginia to southern New Jersey could have damaging winds and significant coastal flooding, even if Florence hovers or moves ashore in North Carolina. So regardless of whether or not Florence moves inland swiftly or stalls, dangerous surf conditions will extend as far to the north as southern New England and Bermuda, and as far to the south as east central Florida coast and the northeast facing shoreline of the Bahamas. And few, if any, lifeguards are on duty to come to the rescue after Labor Day. So operators of small craft should heed all advisories that are issued and remain in port if necessary. Larger vessels such as cruise or cargo ships may have to reroute their courses to avoid Florence's dangerous seas. So also looking at the winds, wind gusts toppling 100 miles per hour are likely near and just north of where Florence approaches the coast, and long-duration winds of 55 miles per hour or greater in saturated ground may cause a tremendous amount of trees to fall and lead to widespread power outages. Once the power goes out, it could be several days and possibly a week or more before electrical service is restored in some communities. So if Florence comes ashore as a Category 3 or 4 hurricane, then damaging winds and power outages may extend southward by 100 miles, inland more than 100 miles, and northward along the coast by 200 miles or more. So as has been the case with hurricanes in most recent years, such as Lane in Hawaii earlier this summer and Harvey last year in Texas, feet of rain can fall when these tropical storms stall. And that scenario has a high probability of occurring in much of North Carolina, a large portion of South Carolina, and part of southern and central Virginia. So given the likelihood of rain being measured in feet rather than inches with Florence, widespread inland, urban, small stream, and major river flooding are anticipated in the Carolinas and southern Virginia. Now, a major natural disaster due to inland flooding will unfold slowly as Florence drifts inland and may linger 4 days and a week or more after Florence's eventual departure and or demise. Now, kind of looking at those factors for Florence's track and forward speed, the strength and orientation of an area of high pressure over the western Atlantic and later the Ohio Valley will be key to Florence's movement. So the clockwise flow of air will guide Florence on a steady northward track into Thursday. And this flow is forecast to weaken Thursday night to Saturday, which is likely to cause Florence to stall and meander. So later this weekend and into early next week, the flow around the high is forecast to strengthen, which should guide Florence well inland. And 3 other tropical storms, Isaac, Helen, and Joyce, are churning in the Atlantic Ocean with the potential for another system to develop in the Gulf of Mexico. And also, I'm going to switch it over now to those articles from the British Patriot and Rick below. Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to start out with Rick's article, and this is from weather.com, updated just 2 hours ago. So first of all, kind of looking at it at a glance, residents in the Mid-Atlantic are preparing for a possible strike from Hurricane Florence later this week. Now, President Trump declared a state of emergency Tuesday for Virginia, and D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser declared a state of emergency Tuesday as well. So Virginia's emergency management website crashed the day after evacuations were ordered. So President Trump on Tuesday declared a state of emergency in Virginia, which frees up federal funds and resources. And President Trump noted that the safety of the American people is his absolute highest priority. And the mayor of the nation's capital declared a state of emergency in anticipation of possible flooding from the storm. In Washington, D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser announced the declaration during a Tuesday press conference honoring local 9/11 first responders, saying the emergency is effective immediately and will continue for 15 days. And Mayor Bowser said in a Monday press release, "While we are monitoring potential impacts of Hurricane Florence on the district, we remain committed to keeping our residents safe, prepared, and informed." And he also said, "I encourage all district residents and visitors to take this storm seriously and stay up to date on the latest emergency information, including signing up for our Alert DC messaging service." Also wanted to shout out, we just received a $2 donation from No Ma'am. Thank you so much, No Ma'am, for that donation. Really appreciate you. So going back to this weather article, the declaration allows utility companies and other emergency crews to work extended hours during the emergency, and it also makes it unlawful to price gouge. Also in the nation's capital, the possibility of heavy rainfall from Florence has the National Park Service contemplating deploying a flood levee built to protect parts of downtown Washington. And Park Service spokesman Mike Litterst told the Washington Post that if conditions warrant, the levee could be placed across 17th Street Northwest, just south of Constitution Avenue. Officials have not used the levee before. So looking into Virginia, the day after Virginia Governor Ralph Northam ordered about 245,000 residents living in Zone A in low-lying areas of Hampton Roads and the Eastern Shore to evacuate, the state's Department of Emergency Management's website and its detailed Know Your Zone maps crashed. Now, Jeff Caldwell, who is the department's lead spokesman, told the Virginian Pilot it went down and stayed down. And he was talking about Tuesday morning, and the site was accessible later in the day, but it has not completely been restored. So to help with evacuations, the Virginia Department of Transportation suspended tolls on the Hampton Roads Express lanes, and it also temporarily reopened many of the lanes that were closed for construction. And Northam had declared a state of emergency Saturday, allowing the Commonwealth to mobilize resources, including the Virginia National Guard, and pre-position people and equipment to assist in storm response and recovery efforts, according to a press release. And also wanted to shout out over on YouTube, we just got another donation. It looks like $5 from Lawrence Stroll. Thank you very much, Lawrence, for that. And also $19.99 from Top Flight Security. Thank you so much, Top Flight. Really appreciate all of your support. So Captain Kevin Carroll, the commander of the Coast Guard sector Hampton Roads, actually told the Virginia pilot people ordered to evacuate, but who decided to ride out the storm maybe on their own as the storm approaches, saying there will likely be a diminished ability to respond to emergencies. And Carroll said, if you're in the Tidewater region of Hampton Roads and you are not taking this storm seriously, you're making a mistake, and that mistake could be a fatal one. Now, the governor emphasized that the effects of the storm could be felt statewide and could range from high winds and storm surge in coastal Virginia to significant flooding both along the coast and in rivers and streams in the western part of the state. Now, in response to the governor's order, which authorized the deployment of up to 6,000 Virginia National Guard personnel, the Guard said in a press release that it's planning on bringing in 1,500 members initially. And General James Ring of the Virginia National Guard, director of the Joint Staff, said the key to being able to rapidly respond is staging personnel and resources in strategic locations before the severe weather hits so they can quickly respond to assist communities if they're impacted by severe weather from Hurricane Florence. Now, schools throughout the state, including public schools in Norfolk, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, and Virginia Beach, are closed until further notice. Now, on Tuesday, shelters opened in Hampton, in Gloucester, and York counties. So the Port of Virginia's shipping channel was closed Wednesday morning and will remain closed until conditions are safe enough for travel. So the ground in the mid-Atlantic area is already saturated from storms over the weekend, and LeVar Stoney, mayor of Richmond, declared a state of emergency for the Commonwealth's capital city. Stoney said, according to the Associated Press, that even if Virginia does not receive a direct impact from Florence, the area could still see heavy rain, strong winds, possible flooding, and power outages. And he urged Richmond's residents to begin gathering supplies. And real quick, before we finish this off, wanted to give a shout out to Expendable Youth, who just donated $5. Thank you so much, Expendable Youth, for that. Really appreciate you. And my dad, who just joined the chat room, thank you for joining. So according to the Virginia Department of Emergency Management spokesman Jeff Caldwell, some shelters opened by local governments may not be opened until Wednesday or Thursday. And this is from weather.com. So elsewhere, the state departments of transportation said service for the Jamestown, Scotland ferry would be suspended beginning at 10 a.m. Wednesday until further notice. And Virginia Beach officials also began to release water from local lakes to make room for the expected heavy rainfall. And the U.S. Navy ordered nearly 30 of its Virginia-based ships out to sea. Navy spokeswoman Alana Garas told the AP the ships will travel to parts of the Atlantic where they can avoid the storm. So on Tuesday, the Navy ordered personnel living in evacuation zone A to evacuate per the state's mandate, according to a statement posted on Facebook. So the Air Force and Air National Guard on Tuesday began moving jets from Virginia's coast to Ohio. Officials from Joint Base Langley Eustis in Hampton said that the base's F-22 Raptors and T-38 Talon training jets were headed for Rickenbacker Air National Guard Base in central Ohio. So workers at the Virginia Zoo in Norfolk actually began moving animals into secure buildings ahead of the storm, and similar preparations were taking place at the Virginia Aquarium, which is located less than a mile from the coast and is home to hundreds of animals, including Komodo dragons, otters, and seals. And Sandbridge residents who have been through numerous storms, including Irene, Matthew, and Sandy, are seriously debating whether to pack up or go or stay to ride out the storm. Now, such is the case. One example here for Doug Wilkins and his family. And while he's ready to pack up his car and leave the seaside community located at the far northern end of the Outer Banks, south of Virginia Beach, his wife told the Virginian Pilot the family would remain at their bait shop. Now, Joan Davis, another long-time resident, told the newspaper about half of the residents choose to remain in Sandbridge during any hurricane or tropical storm, although there comes a point when people must heed mandatory evacuations. And Wilkins said the people in Sandbridge who are going to stay, they're just going to stay. But the people who've already been through the wars, they know when to leave. So also looking at Maryland, Maryland's Governor Larry Hogan declared a state of emergency Monday for his state. He said at this time there's still some uncertainty about the track of the storm and its potential impact, but we're preparing for the potential of historic, catastrophic, and life-threatening flooding. And the Baltimore Sun reports that state officials are more concerned about inland flooding. They offered sandbags to residents in low-lying and flood-prone areas on Tuesday. Now, Russell Strickland, the executive director of the Maryland Emergency Management Agency, told The Sun that emergency staff are preparing emergency operations centers around the state, including swiftwater rescue boats and flat-bottomed boats, in anticipation of possible flooding. And Strickland said, we could have the potential of having historical kind of flooding. We're pretty confident we're going to have a lot of rain. And Justin Mulcahy, a BGE spokesman, told The Sun that Baltimore Gas and Electric Company has asked 800 to 900 crew members from utilities in Chicago and Philadelphia to come help in the Baltimore area in the next few days. So thank you very much for that, Rick Bulow. Very helpful. And we will get to the British Patriots article soon. But first, I got a couple tweets from headquarters that I want to share with you guys. So kind of blocked right up here in the corner, but this is from Tim Levine at Fox 61, and he says peak winds in Florence continue to be the 90 mile per hour found in the first pass by aircraft recon. Regardless of a weaker maximum wind, the pressure is still very low and the surge will be just as high. Storm surge is the deadliest part of the hurricane, and you can see a graphic there. I'll leave that up for a second. And another tweet wanted to share with you from Jim Cantori. He said, even though we've seen Florence weakening some today, it's important to note the size of the hurricane and tropical storm wind fields have expanded. Tropical storm force winds are almost 400 miles across, and the hurricane winds are 140 miles across. Don't focus on the category. And he included a picture of it. And going to leave that up for a second while I share with you some information from Fox News. This was that article from the British Patriot. Thank you so much for sharing it. Really appreciate you. And it's titled, Hurricane Florence puts 10 million in crosshairs along East Coast. Trump urges protection of life. So President Trump on Wednesday said that as Hurricane Florence makes its way toward the U.S., protection of life is the absolute highest priority. Now, the hurricane, according to the president, will be one of the biggest to ever hit the East Coast, one of the biggest to ever hit our country. And hopefully you were able to watch that speech earlier. It was when he was giving a speech at the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. So he also said, my administration is in close coordination with the state, local authorities, and FEMA already has people on the ground, search and rescue, power, and medical support. And he said that residents should comply with all evacuation orders, and protection of life is the highest priority. So more than 10 million people were under storm watches and warnings on Wednesday as Hurricane Florence, described the storm of a lifetime, continued to drive its way to the East Coast. Now, hours after being downgraded to a Category 3 storm, Florence was located 385 miles from Wilmington, North Carolina, and moving at 120 miles per hour. The National Hurricane Center said this in its 5 p.m. advisory. So North and South Carolina, along with Virginia, Maryland, and Georgia, remain under states of emergency ahead of the Mike Tyson punch of a storm's expected landfall in the U.S. later this week. And FEMA Administrator Jeff Byard warned that despite its slight weakening, Florence will still be an extremely dangerous hurricane. He said, do you want to get hit with a train or do you want to get hit with a cement truck? He said an estimated 5.5 million people remained under hurricane watches and warnings on Wednesday evening, while another 4.89 million were under tropical storm watches and warnings. Now, while Florence was slightly reduced in strength earlier from 140 miles per hour winds, meteorologists expect the hurricane to jump back to a Category 4 by Thursday morning, and forecasters predict the storm will make landfall Thursday night or sometime on Friday. So in addition to the hurricane strength winds blowing ashore Friday, Florence has the potential to bring a storm surge upwards of 6 feet in parts of the coastland, including up to 13 feet from Cape Fear north to Cape Lookout. And the hurricane could also produce heavy and excessive rainfall up to 40 inches in isolated areas in the Carolinas and anywhere between 6 to 12 inches elsewhere in the Appalachians and Mid-Atlantic region. And it will also pass directly over 2 nuclear power plants, the Brunswick Nuclear Plant, which is located 30 miles south of Wilmington, as well as the Sharon Harris Nuclear Plant in New Hill, about 23 miles from Raleigh. So the National Weather Service said Hurricane Florence will likely be the storm of a lifetime for portions of the Carolina coast. So thank you very much, British Patriot, for sharing that with us. Really appreciate you for that. And like I said, if you guys have any articles at all that you would like to share with me that I may have missed, please send them to me right here on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN. That would be so appreciated. You know, I am trying my best to just pull as much information together as possible, and sometimes I am researching on the spot. So thank you for bearing with me there. But just know your articles are extremely helpful and extremely appreciated. So also, I want to take a second just to tell you guys about RSBN. If many of you might be new. I know hurricane coverage brings in a lot of new viewers. So just want to take a second to tell you about Right Side Broadcasting Network, who we are and what we do. So we actually got our start during President Trump's election, where we traveled to rallies all around the country and really showed the crowds. That is what Right Side Broadcasting Network is famous for, really showing the crowds, something that the mainstream media outlets neglect to do. And so we are, we do lean conservative, but we try to be non-biased to show you guys both sides of the story and let you make those informed decisions for yourself. Now, because we are an independent station, we are donor supported and donor funded. So we really appreciate all of your donations. And I'm going to real quick go through the different ways that you can donate. One way, super easy, is right here on the YouTube chat. All you have to do is click that $sign down below. That is the super chat, and you'll be able to donate on there. Your name will come up with whatever personal message you type in a bright color, and it is a really fun way to donate. I will read that message you send to everyone, of course, as long as it's appropriate. Now, we do get to keep about 70% of those donations on YouTube. So a way that we can keep a little bit more is actually through PayPal. So I'm going to switch it over real quick and show you guys how you can get to our PayPal site, the different ways that you can donate from our website. So if you can see right behind me here, this top bar, all you do is go to our website, rsbnetwork.com. And speaking of donations, we just got a $5 donation from Funky Blue. Thank you so much for that. Funky, really appreciate you. So all you have to do is click donate at the very top here on our website. And you can see the different ways here. If you'd like to donate with PayPal or with a credit or debit card, you can click right here and you just enter that amount and your card information, your billing address, and you can also choose to save this information for next time if you want to hold off on it for a minute. So also, if maybe you feel a little more invested with RSBN, you really like what you're seeing and you want to make sure to see more of it, you can actually become a patron. You can actually become a monthly donor, which is a really great way to donate. You actually receive fun ways in return. So I'm going to show you one of the things you can get, but first I'm going to show you how you can get there. So all you have to do is click this link. It takes you directly to Patreon. So if you're going to Patreon separately from our website, all you do is type in www.patreon.com/RSBN and you can become a patron right here. In the corner, you just click that button, and there's different levels. Actually, you get to decide whichever one is best suited for you. So all the way from the entry level, which is $1 or more per month, going down all the way to the all access level if you are donating $500 or more per month, and you receive fun things like hats, pens, pencils, t-shirts, and mugs, just like this one. You can turning it, you can see the beautiful logo, Right Side Broadcasting Network, RSBN TV. And so that is a great way to donate on Patreon. Now, if you're not comfortable donating online, we completely understand and respect that. You can send a check directly to our P.O. Box. You just write it out to RSBN, and you just send it to 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama 36830. I have said that address so many times earlier. I was actually sending mail out and I started writing it down. I started writing Opelika Road instead of my actual road. But anyways, that's how you can donate. It was really fun. Just earlier today, Joe got to go through a lot of those letters. I got to read some of them, and just really thankful to see what we mean to you guys. And it is really an honor that we are able to serve you. So we are going to switch over and get back to hurricane coverage. Now remember, like I said, and will always say, if you have any information that you want to share with me, send it to me on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN. That would be so appreciated. Looks like we got a new article from Rick Bulow. Thank you so much for always sending those articles. This is from the Mormon newsroom.com. It's pretty quick. It's a statement I'm going to share with you guys. But first, wanted to shout out, we just got a $50 donation from Tony SD40. Thank you, Tony, times 3. Really appreciate you and your donation. That will definitely help us get to our next rally. We're hoping will be next week in Arizona. Like I said, hasn't been released yet, but that is what we're expecting. So stay tuned for that. And thank you so much, Tony. Really appreciate that. So this is from, real quick, Rick Bulow sent this to me from mormonnewsroom.org. So missionaries evacuated as hurricane nears the U.S. southeast coast. So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints released this statement on Hurricane Florence. Missionaries in the path of Hurricane Florence are taking necessary precautions to remain safe as the storm prepares to make landfall. Missionaries serving in coastal areas are being moved to safe locations with adequate supplies. Mission presidents are instructing missionaries on safety protocols as well as how to offer service in appropriate ways in the aftermath of the storm. The church continues to monitor conditions on the ground and will make any necessary adjustments as the storm progresses. We pray for the safety and well-being of all those in the path of the hurricane. And the hurricane is expected to hit the southeast coast of the United States later this week. A hurricane warning has been issued for parts of North and South Carolina. Thank you, Rick Bulow, for that. Really appreciate that. And looks like we just got another article, a really special one from Ronnie Mercer. Thank you very much, Ronnie. This is great, and we may have a little video that we can share here as well. So this is from Fox News. Hurricane Florence prompts volunteer group America's Cajun Navy to send more than 1,000 people to help. So I'm going to pull this over so that you guys can see the video. Ronnie says the Cajun Navy is a volunteer group based in Louisiana. They got a lot of attention during Hurricane Harvey. Now they're on their way to the Carolinas. So we're going to take a look at this. Sorry guys, I know there was no audio on that. Apologize for that. So we're going to take it back and I'm going to show it to you one more time. Thank you for letting me know.
More gas cans, rain gear, all kinds of medical supplies.
Taylor Fontenot is loading up his gear and preparing to meet 150 other Texans at Buc-ee's in Baytown tomorrow to make the trip to the Carolinas and Virginia, where they'll spread out and prepare to rescue those in need.
I'll have another 100 gallons of fuel in smaller tanks. We got the boat, the LEDs to work at night.
The group has about 1,000 volunteers total from across the nation headed into Florence's path. They're prepared to make the same rescues they did during Harvey and other hurricanes.
First 7 days is usually search and rescue. First 4 or 5 days is human. Last 2 will be more focused probably towards animal. All depends on the storm, and then day 7 to day 10 goes into body recovery.
Over at the American Red Cross in Houston,
we want to give a cot to everybody.
6 volunteers are flying out to the Carolinas. Pedro Ramirez will head out to the coast tomorrow to help prepare a mega shelter for those in the hurricane's path.
Gets them out of the elements right on the spot. You in a disaster area, and then you're not in, you're in safety. That's the key part. Once you're in safety, then you can start thinking about recovery.
This volunteer anxious to help others after so many helped Houston during Hurricane Harvey.
During Harvey, it was a good eye opener on how the need, and how everybody came out here to Houston. I want to get back.
Add the Activia 2-week probiotic challenge to your healthy routine.
Sorry about the issues there, but thank you guys for bearing with me. Such a great story. Thank you so much, Ronnie Mercer, for sharing it with us. And I'm going to throw up a live radar. This is from windy.com. And while you can see this, you can see Hurricane Florence definitely getting closer to the coast every minute. I am going to take a second just to kind of run down that story, a little bit more information that we just watched. So this is from Fox News. A volunteer organization called America's Cajun Navy says it's sending more than 1,000 people to North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia ahead of Hurricane Florence. And President John Billiot told Fox News, as you just heard, "We are a search and rescue organization." And he said that they're adding that they also have a canine team to look for your loved ones. And Billiot says America's Cajun Navy is sending maybe 12 or 1,300 people to the Carolinas and Virginia, and 800, almost 900 boats, which come from across the U.S. And he explained the count goes up almost every 10-15 minutes. And Billiot said the organization completed 35,000 rescues during Hurricane Harvey. And for Florence, the group is focusing on a different figure. He said the number we're worried about, 0. We want to see the number 0. 0 fatalities, 0 injuries. That is our main number. And Taylor Fontenot, the Texas captain of America's Cajun Navy, spoke to Fox 26 on Tuesday before heading out. He explained first 7 days is usually search and rescue. First 4 or 5 days is usually human. Last 2 will probably focus towards animal. And he added it all depends on the storm, and then day 7 to 10 goes into body recovery. But not everyone is hitting the road. He said a few hundred volunteers are staying in Louisiana and Texas in case the storm affects the Gulf Coast. And Billiot says people interested in helping the group can reach out via their Facebook page, and those interested in donating can do so by visiting their website, which is americascajunnavy.org. And I will bring that over so you guys can take a look at it. This is americascajunnavy.org. Neighbors helping neighbors. There's a donate option and some information. It says America's Cajun Navy is based out of Lafayette, Louisiana, the heart of Cajun country. We're excited to be launching our new website, and our customer feedback has been super. Thank you for visiting. We look forward to seeing you again and again. Now, if you want to get involved, you can. They say they're always looking for volunteers to help us make our vision a reality. We'll help you find a way to volunteer that best suits you. We're excited to have you join the team. Fundraising for nonprofit rescue. And they also said, thank you, whether you help through monetary donations, volunteering your time, or spreading our mission through word of mouth, thank you. We couldn't accomplish our goals without the help of supporters like you. What a wonderful organization. Thank you so much, Ronnie Mercer, for bringing that to my attention. And just got some really cool images. The British Patriot is on point tonight. Thank you so much. He sent me some. This is from sciencealert.com. And it is astronauts taking Florence photos from the International Space Station. So we're going to have some visuals real quick. You can see the first one at the top. And going down, it says Alexander Gerst, a German astronaut orbiting Earth from 250 miles up, has a warning for humans on the planet below him. He says, "Watch out, America." He joined the crew of the International Space Station in June, and he said Wednesday in a tweet featuring pictures he took of Hurricane Florence. He said, "This is a no-kidding nightmare coming for you. Hurricane Florence is a Category 4 storm headed for the U.S.'s East Coast and predicted to start affecting South Carolina and North Carolina as early as Thursday, according to the National Hurricane Center. And because of its enormous size and power, the storm has been a recent, if not frightening, muse for astronaut photography." So here's some of the best images of Hurricane Florence by Gerst and Ricky Arnold, a fellow NASA astronaut living abroad, the ISS. So Gerst said Hurricane Florence was so enormous with a width of more than 500 miles that he could only capture her with a super wide angle lens. So here's one of those first pictures. You can see just how big the eye is. And this says, when the space station flew over the storm's menacing eye, Gerst took this photo, and he warned, get prepared on the East Coast. But he also had a high-powered telephoto lens handy where he could actually zoom in on the eye. Yes, British Patriot said these images are insane. They definitely are. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's really crazy how it is beautiful and terrifying at the same time. And Gerst said, ever stared down the gaping eye of a Category 4 hurricane? It's chilling even from space. There is a closer look. So the photo shows what it looks like deep inside the eye of Hurricane Florence, a place of relative calm for such storms. And another close-up view continuing to zoom in on the eye. So the NASA astronaut Ricky Arnold has also been following the giant storm, and he said on Wednesday that the International Space Station's crew is thinking of those who will be affected. And there's another aerial view from space, zoomed out a little bit. So this oblique view of the cyclone shows its outer bands just within reach of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, where the storm's powerful eye could make landfall. And Arnold has been following the storm's progress for days from his lofty perch. The picture shows Hurricane Florence on Monday. And here is another shot of the still strengthening storm on the same day. And Arnold and his crewmates have seen 2 other big storms brewing in the Atlantic Ocean, including Hurricane Helen and Tropical Storm Isaac. So NASA also recorded what it called stark and sobering video footage of Florence from the space station on Wednesday. And just received another tweet from headquarters. Thank you so much for this. It is from Mark Sudduth, who's a hurricane tracker. And it says water levels rising steadily in Oriental North Carolina. So it's kind of dark, but you can see the water rising. Also, we have an update from the National Weather Service. So maximum winds from Florence have decreased, they said, but don't let that fool you. This weakening only refers to maximum winds. The field has expanded and rainfall/storm surge potential are still at catastrophic levels. I'm going to pull that down so you can get a better look at it for a second. Also want to know if you guys have any loved ones that may have evacuated, please let me know so we can keep them in our prayers. Comment here on YouTube or Facebook. I'm going to take a second to look at Facebook. And also just received a $19.99 donation from Rick Moore. Thank you so much for that, Rick. And he said, I miss the rallies. Thank you, Rick. So do I. We're hoping to be able to go next week. It's really unfortunate that Mississippi and Missouri were canceled this week, but it was definitely for a good reason. And good, it looks like over on Facebook, VB Brown giving everyone a good reminder. She says, take your pets with you. Do not leave your pets behind. Daniel Kane said, put life jackets on your dogs. And Cheryl Bauer Butner says, prayers for all. God, please watch over all. And this is good. Colin Duke shared an alert. It says Winchester Raceway Park, just off the square in Winchester, Tennessee, is opening as a refuge from Hurricane Florence. Anyone with a valid North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, or Georgia license can camp at the Speedway until all clear back home. Thank you, Colleen, for sharing that. Really appreciate you. And Lily Hager says, one sister and her family live inward, but they're in South Carolina, and my other sister lives in Virginia Beach. So definitely will be keeping them in our prayers, Lily. And going to take a minute to check Twitter and just see what people are saying about this. And Greta says Hurricane Florence is no Hugo. It looks worse. And she shared an article just 16 seconds ago. We can go through this real quick. This is from Grist. So with winds of 125 miles per hour and a span of hundreds of miles, Hurricane Florence is already one of the largest and strongest hurricanes ever to threaten the East Coast. The National Weather Service in Wilmington, North Carolina, near where Florence is expected to make landfall on Thursday, is already calling it the storm of a lifetime. So in this region, the current storm of anyone's lifetime is 1989's Hurricane Hugo. With winds of 140 miles per hour, it was the most powerful hurricane to hit land north of Florida since weather records began in 1851. And even though the winds won't be quite as strong, Florence could be much worse by many other measures. Take a look at how they compare side by side from space. So you can see this is really cool. Florence right here on the right and Hugo on the left. So larger hurricanes typically bring much higher storm surges, historically the deadliest threat from hurricanes, because a larger span of winds can push more water ashore. Now, Hugo's storm surge peaked at about 20 feet near Moore's Landing, South Carolina, and owing to North Carolina's unique coastal geography and with the extra nudge from the past 30 years of sea level rise, Florence's surge could top 20 feet. And large, slow-moving hurricanes can also produce more rain. The latest warnings from the National Hurricane Center predict totals of up to 40 inches in isolated areas, far above the 27.84 inches that fell in Georgia during Hurricane Alberto in 1994, which was the East Coast record, or the 10.28 inches that fell in South Carolina during Hugo. So Florence's deluge will extend inland for hundreds of miles, which would flood virtually every river and stream in the Carolinas. Worst of all, Florence will likely slide southward after reaching the shore, following the coastline and inflicting damage down to Charleston, South Carolina, or as far as Savannah, Georgia. Now, in contrast, Hugo's landfall was relatively quick, weakening to a tropical storm in less than a day, and Florence's long coastal tour could take as long as 2.5 days. Now, stronger, rainier, and more damaging hurricanes have long been predicted as a consequence of climate change. Florence is the latest example, and there are more to come. And also just received a video from the British Patriot. Thank you for this. This is a link to that NASA video that was mentioned when we were going through all of the pictures. So we're going to take a quick look at it. There's no sound. And another aerial view of Hurricane Florence. And this one, I think I already shared with you guys a close up, but we'll take another look at it. This is not updated because, as you know, Hurricane Florence has moved and is a lot closer to the coast. So we're going to keep looking at Twitter to get some more updates. So this is cool from Cheryl Scott. It says radar lighting up the first outer rain bands of Hurricane Florence. And you can see right here where they're lit up. It looks like New Bern, Jacksonville, and Wilmington. Goldsboro, Fayetteville, Tarboro, North Carolina is going to get some, and Raleigh. And kind of going through Twitter right now just to see what other people have to say about it. This is a quick video from AJ Plus we can take a look at. Over 1 million people were ordered to evacuate ahead of Hurricane Florence. Experts warn it could be the storm of a lifetime in some areas. And it's really just music and graphics, so I'm going to play it without the music so we do not get flagged for copyright. You can see it says residents and tourists are leaving. Hospitals are transporting patients. Stores are selling out of supplies. Gas stations are running out of fuel. Even Navy ships were sent away. And you can see Henry McMaster was giving that statement. He said it's going to be dangerous, but we do not want to risk one South Carolina life in this storm. And looks like we got another update from FEMA. It says this is a massive flood from Florence that will last into next week. Please be ready by signing up for local weather alerts and reviewing safety information. And they shared this from the National Weather Service Eastern Region. It says life-threatening catastrophic flash flooding and prolonged significant river flooding are likely over portions of the Carolinas and the southern central Appalachians late this week into early next week, as Florence is expected to slow down as it approaches the coast and moves inland. And you can see this is a 7-day total rainfall forecast. And the light purple here in Wilmington indicating 30 to 50 inches of rain. Moving in close to Myrtle Beach, 20 to 30 inches of rain. Then 15 to 20 over by Columbia. Looks like 10 to 15 inches of rain in Florence, Kensington. And also, before we finish this out, wanted to shout out, we just got a $14.99 donation from Jesus is Lord. Thank you so much, Jesus is Lord, for that generous donation, $14.99. Really appreciate that. And that will definitely help us get to our next rally, which is hopefully next week. Stay tuned for that. So thank you, Jesus. So also kind of moving in a little bit over here, Charleston right ahead of Barnwell and Cheraw, South Carolina, looking at getting 8 to 10 inches of rain. And over in Barnwell, expected, and Charlotte, Raleigh, Winston-Salem, Mount Airy, Roanoke, Lexington. Looks like they're expecting 4 to 6 inches of rain. And moving in a little bit, where you see this dark yellow, it's just above Savannah. I know you can't really see that, but Savannah could actually get more. So this is saying right now 2 to 3 inches of rain. But if Florence actually does turn southward and edges towards Savannah, it's going to get a lot more rain. So over where you see this light yellow in Clintwood, even Beckley, West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia State College, they are just expecting 1.5 to 2 inches of rain. And they are as well in Pennsylvania, in State College, Williamsport. And where you see the green, it'll just be some light rain between 0.1 to 1 inches of rain. And getting some more messages on Twitter. Gonna share those with you guys real quick. Bob Meyer says, will it hit Wyoming? I do not think so. So this is another live look British Patriot just shared with us. Thank you so much. This is from earth.nullskull.net. And it really just shows the intensity of Hurricane Florence and where it is right now. And going to go back to windy. This is an interactive map. I know I was sharing this with you guys earlier today. It's really cool because, as you can see, the different options here, you can actually see the radar, the lightning, the wind gusts, rain, thunder, the temperature, clouds, and waves. And really cool, earlier we were kind of looking at just how high these waves are going to be. And zooming in to the eye of the storm, it'll actually give you different measurements. Looks like 49 feet right here. And then right here at the eye wall, kind of right outside the eye of the storm, going into the low 30s, 34 feet. Moving out a little bit, 27 foot high waves and 21. But you can see just how massive those wave patterns are. And we can also look at the wind, kind of zooming in to look at the eye of the storm. Looks like it's at 17 knots in the eye. And moving out, it actually increases 22 knots. 44. 43, 58, 63, 62, 50 knots. So it kind of varies around the eye as we keep going out a little bit. And 25 knots. And then 21. And also, I want to give you guys, this is a live look. This is a satellite look at its projected path. So I'm going to let you look at that for a minute.
Hey everybody, it's Joe here at the RSBN studio in Auburn. Just looking right now at a live satellite picture here of Hurricane Florence, now a Category 3 storm, but weakening. But as the National Weather Service said, don't let that fool you, because A lot of times with these storms, you see people focus too much on the wind speed, such as you remember Hurricane Katrina, when it hit, it was a Category 5 and then it weakened significantly. And people really decided at the last minute, a lot of them based their decision on whether or not to evacuate on that. And of course, that turned out to be the most devastating hurricane in the history of the United States. So we need to also look at the huge size and scope of this thing, which the track continues to change. A lot of this depends on whether or not the brunt of the precipitation hits areas that depends on the sea, what the sea level is, and so we need to be just mindful of the fact that the flooding is a lot more concerning in most of these areas than the winds will be. So this is, you look at the cone and you say, well, how does that? How can they not know? Well, obviously, I can tell you from here, just looking, that a lot of it depends on an area of high pressure that sits now in the right around where you see up there where the H is in Kentucky. It's just sort of sitting there, and they had hoped that this area of high pressure would sort of move in and move this storm a little bit up towards the northeast and maybe send it back out to the Atlantic. But that has not been the case. And so what we're really worried about now is that this thing is going to stall out right before it hits the coast. And you see there, the projected path, it really varies depending on what happens with that high pressure system. It could go to the north. It could go a little bit farther to the south. The track is actually shifted now somewhat to the south, as you see on into even Georgia, Savannah, not even out of the woods yet. So there is a lot of concern over this thing dumping loads of rain, more so than the wind. Again, we all like to talk about the wind speeds, but the most significant thing with this storm, associated with this storm, is going to be the rainfall. These are going to be Hurricane Katrina type rainfalls if the National Weather Service is correct. And you all remember what happened with that. So anybody that's still in the area, just if you haven't evacuated, I would advise you to evacuate, because the winds will only last a small amount of time, and you'll be out of the woods, at least the hurricane force winds. But the flooding is the most dangerous part of this hurricane, especially if it stalls out, just as it did with Hurricane Katrina. National Weather Service is calling this a once in a lifetime storm. So don't be fooled by the Category 3, 2, 1, whatever it is when it comes on the coast. This is going to be a very dangerous situation. And us being here in Auburn, we're sort of all the way almost to the very left, to the west of this map here. We could even see some drenching rains from this, depending on the track of it. So it can affect a huge portion of the East Coast and the Southeast before it's all said and done. So just want to give you a quick update there. I'll turn it back over to Alyssa now, who's doing a great job in studio here. And we're going to have continuing coverage all day tomorrow here at RSBN, starting sometime in the mid-morning hours perhaps, and then obviously we'll be with you all through the night as this thing comes on shore. So turning it back over now to Alyssa Ashe.
Thank you so much, Joe, for coming on. I know everyone really appreciated that. They were hoping you would come on earlier, saying that they remembered seeing you in the past and that you sounded like Jim Cantori. So thank you so much for coming on. Great update there. Always good to get another perspective. And it's great. I want to just take a minute and thank everyone just for hanging out with us tonight in the chat room. We're not close to done yet, but just wanted to take a minute and let you guys know how much I really appreciate you, especially our moderators that are here tonight in the chat room. Real Frank in Florida and Guinevere. Thank you guys so much for being here. And also looking out for those members, but also looks like we have a lot of new viewers tonight too that we usually don't have. So thank you guys again so much for being here. And a shout out to those website moderators, Reculp, Glenn O, Common Sense. Thank you guys for all you do just for keeping our website clean. We really appreciate you guys. And I really like what Joe said, don't be fooled by the number, whether this remains a category 3, whether it goes back up to a 4 or down to a 2 or 1, it still can be the storm of a lifetime, especially if it is stalling out on that coast, just drenching the coast. And that flooding is something that we're really going to have to watch out for. So thank you. And I see a lot of you guys commenting, Joe the weatherman and Joe the meteorologist. Thank you for those comments. So also, yeah, that's good. Christopher Milner, one of our members, he says NC Mountain's supposed to get 10 inches. Wow. So want to take a second. I got some more information from the Weather Channel. It's actually saying Hurricane Florence will slow down, hammer Carolinas and Appalachia for days with catastrophic flooding and destructive winds. So kind of first, just looking at it at a glance, Florence is a dangerous category 3 hurricane. And Florence is expected to crawl near or along the coast of the Carolinas at least through Saturday. And this will produce catastrophic flash flooding and major river flooding. And yes, Christopher Milner says in those North Carolina mountains, it's even going to be 20 inches of rain in different places. So life-threatening storm surge will occur near landfall and for some time after. And hurricane and storm surge warnings have been issued. So tropical storm force winds may arrive as soon as Thursday, so looking into tomorrow. And Florence's remnant may linger in parts of the east into early next week. So Hurricane Florence will slow down, performing an agonizing crawl through the Carolinas and southeast into early next week, producing catastrophic inland rainfall flooding, life-threatening storm surge, and destructive winds. And as of Wednesday morning, Florence was centered 335 miles southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina, moving northwestward. So Hurricane Florence continues to expand in size, and hurricane force winds now extend outward up to 70 miles the center, and tropical storm force winds now extend up to 195 miles from the center. So this expansion in size only increases the hurricane's energy and potential for significant storm surge. And the immense size of Florence is also harvesting some enormous waves on top of the storm surge. Now, according to the National Hurricane Center, wave heights up to 83 feet were measured Wednesday morning to the northeast of Florence's eye. So the National Weather Service in Wilmington, North Carolina said this will likely be, and I know you guys have heard this again and again, the storm of a lifetime for portions of the Carolina coast. And a Wednesday morning forecast discussion said flooding in southeast North Carolina and northeast South Carolina will be unprecedented. So a hurricane warning and storm surge are in effect from the South Santee River, South Carolina, to Duck, North Carolina, including the Albemarle and Pamlico Sounds. And hurricane warnings also reach inland across eastern North Carolina. This includes Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina, and most of the Outer Banks. So hurricane watches are in effect from Edisto Beach, South Carolina, northward to the South Santee River, South Carolina, and this includes Charleston. So storm surge watches, also something to look out for. They remain posted north of Duck to the border between North Carolina and Virginia, as well as from Edisto Beach, South Carolina, northward to the South Santee River, South Carolina. Hurricane watches also extend to some extent inland in the Carolinas, including such cities as Goldsboro and Lumberton, North Carolina, with a hurricane warning posted for Kinston, North Carolina. So tropical storm watches have been issued farther north from the border between North Carolina and Virginia to Cape Charles Lighthouse, Virginia, as well as the Chesapeake Bay south of New Point Comfort, Virginia. This includes Virginia Beach and Norfolk, Virginia. So a hurricane warning means hurricane force winds are expected somewhere within the warning area and is typically issued 36 hours ahead of the arrival of tropical storm force winds, which could make last minute preparations difficult. So a storm surge warning means there is a danger of a life-threatening storm surge inundation within the warning area during the next 36 hours from rising water moving inland from the coastline. Now, if you're in the threat zone, you should be rushing hurricane preparations to completion. Now, residents in coastal areas should follow evacuation orders from local officials because of the potential for life-threatening storm surge flooding. Now, Florence is being steered toward the coast of the Carolinas by a strong dome of high pressure aloft over the western Atlantic Ocean. However, that scenario won't last very long, as that high pressure system will weaken, allowing Florence to slow down tremendously. And fluctuations in intensity are likely through Thursday morning. Regardless, Florence will be a dangerous, formidable hurricane nearing the coast of the Carolinas beginning late Thursday night. Now, also some storm surge inundation forecast from the National Hurricane Center if the eye of Florence arrives at high tide. So from Cape Fear to Cape Lookout, North Carolina, including the Neuse, Pamlico, Pungo, and Bay rivers, 9 to 13 feet. Now from North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to Cape Fear, North Carolina, 6 to 9 feet. From Cape Lookout, North Carolina to Ocracoke Inlet, North Carolina, 6 to 9 feet. And from South Santee River, South Carolina to North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 4 to 6 feet. From Ocracoke Inlet, North Carolina to Salvo, North Carolina, 4 to 6 feet. From Salvo, North Carolina to the North Carolina-Virginia border, 2 to 4 feet. And from Edisto Beach, South Carolina to the South Santee River, South Carolina, 2 to 4 feet. So also looking at some wind impact. So tropical storm force winds, which are 39 plus miles per hour, are expected to arrive in the hurricane warning area Thursday, making preparations difficult or even dangerous. Now, hurricane force winds, which are 74 plus miles per hour, may arrive by late Thursday or Friday. And numerous downed trees and long-lasting power outages could occur near and inland from where the center of Florence strikes. So also we're going to see a threat of tree damage and power outages. This may also extend across Florence's larger swath of tropical storm force winds and may last for an extended period of time into this weekend. So structural damage to homes and buildings is possible, particularly where the core of any hurricane force winds moves through. So we're also going to see some high impact rainfall. Florence will produce high-end flash flooding between Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and Morehead City, North Carolina. Now, the National Hurricane Center notes that life-threatening catastrophic flash flooding and prolonged significant river flooding are likely over portions of the Carolinas and the southern and central Appalachians late this week into early next week. So that heavy rain threat may last for days into early next week in some areas, given Florence's slow movement. And disastrous flooding is expected in some areas, not simply near the coastal Carolinas, where the heaviest rain totals are forecast, but also in the Appalachians, where heavy rain over mountainous terrain is likely to trigger mud and rock slides. And according to the National Hurricane Center, Florence is expected to produce the following rainfall totals. So coastal North Carolina, 20 to 30 inches with isolated totals up to 40 inches. South Carolina, Western, and North Carolina, 5 to 10 inches with isolated totals up to 20 inches. And elsewhere in the Appalachians, mid-Atlantic states, 3 to 6 inches with isolated totals up to 12 inches. So the runoff from these incredible rainfall totals will continue for days and then will enter the riverways of the Carolinas. And flooding may swell these watersheds for weeks, if not months. So the name Florence has been used for Atlantic tropical storms and hurricanes since 1953. And the destructive potential of this iteration could mean the name Florence may be retired from future use. So looking at Florence's history, Tropical Depression 6 formed late on August 31st and then was named Tropical Storm Florence the next day in the far eastern Atlantic Ocean. On September 5th, Florence became a Category 4 hurricane after rapidly intensifying over the open Atlantic Ocean, and wind shear then weakened Florence back to a tropical storm late on September 6th, and Florence underwent rapid intensification a second time Sunday into Monday when its winds jumped up from 75 miles per hour to 130 miles per hour in just 25 hours, ending at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday. And remember, if you guys have any updates that you would like to share with me, maybe something that I may have missed, please send it to me on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN. Going to throw up my Twitter handle for a second so that you will be able to see it, whether it's a tweet, a video, a picture. Would love to share that with everyone. So please send it to me over on Twitter, and we're also going to take a look at Twitter just to see what people are saying about this. And also, we just received a $19.99 donation from Sinless Begone Degons. Thank you so much, Sinless, for that. Really appreciate your support. That'll definitely help us get to our next rally, which we're hoping will be next week in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, this is not confirmed yet. We've just heard it, but stay tuned. We will, of course, keep you updated as soon as we know. Also, an update I'm going to share with you guys. So this is from WOAY Newswatch. It says Hurricane Florence down to a Category 2 storm with winds at 110 miles per hour. Good news, it will be a weaker storm at landfall, but still massive flooding and storm surge coming to the Carolina coast. So we're going to take another look at it. You can see right here where it is a Category 2 storm, and it's just going to be moving in to the coast of the Carolinas. And also going to take another look on Twitter just to see what everyone is saying about this. And Scott Paget, F. Scott Paget from CBS, says Hurricane Florence weakens but is still on track to impact North and South Carolina. Devastating flooding still possible with this dangerous storm. We'll kind of back it up so you can see this again, its projected path. And this is an update from the National Hurricane Center with a model you can see here. So Florence weakens, a little more life-threatening storm surge and rainfall still expected. And this confirms current maximum sustained winds of 110 miles per hour. It's a Category 2 now. And you can see its projected path. And this says, note the cone contains the probable path of the storm center, but does not show the size of the storm. Hazardous conditions can occur outside the cone. And an update from another meteorologist, Stephanie Sine. She says Florence weakens to Category 2 storm. Dry air has worked into the southern side of Florence, weakening the system to a Cat 2 hurricane. Track is also shifting further inland. And here is another model. You can see how it is moving further inland, a little closer to Columbia, South Carolina, right above Charleston. And this is a timeline how Hurricane Florence could impact South Carolina. So this was updated just a couple hours ago, and this is from WLTX 19, channel 19 in Columbia, South Carolina. So it says Hurricane Florence is currently expected to make landfall as a major hurricane by the end of the week, but now its track appears to be changing, which may bring changes to South Carolina's weather. According to the National Hurricane Center, Florence is now expected to make landfall near the North Carolina-South Carolina border, but then shift southwest, moving into the state and toward Georgia. And new forecast track models show the storm's path dipping lower into South Carolina. Now, if the storm moves through the state from east to west, there will be heavy prolonged rain, gusty winds, and the chance of tornadoes. And any additional changes to the forecast track could impact what Florence brings to South Carolina. However, it is expected to affect a wide area of the southeastern United States. And forecasters said that once the storm makes landfall, Florence is anticipated to move inland, but may quickly stall, bringing heavy rains to parts of the southeast. And here is another model you can see right here. Its projected path. Pretty much looks the same, but it has not been updated that it's now a Category 2 hurricane. So kind of looking into the rest of the week for South Carolina. So Thursday, it will be hot, humid, and mostly sunny. High temperatures will be in the lower to mid 90s. Heat index values will be in the lower 100-degree range. Now, Friday, the clouds will increase. There will be a chance for showers and storms. High temperatures will be in the lower 90s. It will be breezy at times. Winds will be out of the north-northwest at 15 to 25 miles per hour with stronger gusts. Now, on Saturday, windy occasional showers and storms, high temperatures in the mid-80s. Given the current forecast track, there will be a chance for flash flooding and severe weather. River flooding will be an issue. If you live in a flood-prone area, you will need to follow the forecast closely. This will be watched over the weekend. Now, Sunday, windy with heavy rain likely. High temperatures in the lower 80s. Given the current forecast track, there will continue to be a chance for flash flooding and severe weather. River flooding will be an issue if you live in a flood-prone area. Watch the forecast closely. And switching over, I am going to keep checking Twitter to see what other updates we can get. So this is interesting. It is from WSOCTV.com. So Florence could flood North Carolina hog manure pits and coal ash dumps. And this is out of Cape Fear, North Carolina. So Hurricane Florence's heavy rains could cause an environmental disaster in North Carolina, where waste from hog manure pits, coal ash dumps, and other industrial sites could wash into homes and threaten drinking water supplies. And computer models predict more than 3 feet of rain in the eastern part of the state a fertile low-lying plain veined by brackish rivers with a propensity for escaping their banks. Longtime locals don't have to strain their imaginations to foresee what rain like that can do. It's happened before. In September 1999, Hurricane Floyd came ashore near Cape 4 as a Category 2 storm that dumped about 2 feet of water on a region already soaked days earlier by Hurricane Dennis. The result was the worst natural disaster in state history, a flood that killed dozens of people and left whole towns underwater, their residents stranded on rooftops. And the bloated carcasses of hundreds of thousands of hogs, chickens, and other drowned livestock bobbed in a nose-stinging soup of fecal matter, pesticides, fertilizer, and gasoline so toxic that fish flopped helplessly on the surface to escape it. Rescue workers smeared Vicks Vapor Rub under their noses to try to numb their senses against the stench. And Florence is forecast to make landfall in the same region as a much stronger storm. Now, Jamie Cruz, who is director of the Center for Natural Hazards Research at East Carolina University, said this one is pretty scary. The environmental impacts will be from concentrated animal feeding operations and coal ash pits. Until the system gets flushed out, there's going to be a lot of junk in the water. Now, North Carolina has roughly 2,100 industrial-scale pork farms containing more than 9 million hogs, typically housed in long metal sheds with graded floors designed to allow the animals' urine to fall through and flow into nearby open-air pits containing millions of gallons of untreated sewage. Now, during Floyd, dozens of these lagoons either breached or were overtopped by floodwaters, spilling the contents, and state taxpayers ended up buying out and closing 43 farms located in floodplains. Now, to prepare for Florence, the North Carolina Port Council says its members have pumped down lagoon levels to absorb at least 2 feet of rain. And low-lying farms have been moving their hogs to higher ground. So Brandon Warren, the Port Council's president and hog farmer, said our farmers and others in the pork industry are working together to take precautions that will protect our farms, our animals, and our environment. The preparations for a hurricane began long before the past few hours or days. Our farmers take hurricane threats extremely seriously. And the Environmental Protection Agency said Tuesday that it would be monitoring 9 toxic waste cleanup sites near the Carolinas coast for potential flooding. And more than a dozen such Superfund sites in and around Houston flooded last year in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, with spills of potentially hazardous materials reported at 2. So before I finish this up, wanted to shout out, we just got $4.99 from Scottsdale, Arizona. Thank you so much for that. Who says, will Isaac, Helen, or Joyce affect the USA? I am not sure about that yet, but stay tuned. We will keep you updated on other hurricanes as well. So finishing up this WSOC TV article, also of concern are more than 24 massive coal ash pits operated by Duke Energy, the state's primary electricity provider. Now, the gray ash that remains after coal is burned contains potentially harmful amounts of mercury, arsenic, and lead. Now, since power plants need vast amounts of water to generate this stream, their unlined waste pits are located along lakes and rivers, and some of the pits were inundated during past storms, including during Floyd and Hurricane Matthew back in 2016. So after a 2014 spill at a Duke plant coated 70 miles of the Dan River in toxic gray sludge, state regulators forced the Charlotte-based company to begin phasing out its coal ash pits by 2029. And Norton said, "We are more prepared than ever," and the company is also preparing for a potential shutdown of nuclear reactors at least 2 hours before the arrival of hurricane force winds. And the Brunswick plant's 2 reactors are the same design as those in Fukushima, Japan, that exploded and leaked radiation following a 2011 earthquake and tsunami. Now, Duke Energy didn't respond to requests for information about specific changes made at Brunswick, other than to say emergency generators and pumps will remove the stormwater at the plant if it floods. Now, I am going to let you guys take a live look at the satellite, and I will be right back.
go call my wife.
Okay. So going to share with you guys, we have an updated tweet from Weather Nation, and it says new recent hurricane hunter observations have found Florence has weakened some more to a strong category 2 hurricane with max winds of 110 miles per hour. The forecast calls for weaker winds than prior, but still the same amount of heavy rain and flood potential. So do not be fooled by whatever category it is. It's still extremely dangerous, and there still will be a lot of flooding, just as Joe said. So I'm going to give you guys another live look at that windy forecast. While I share some more information for you guys. This is from CBS News, and it was updated today, just a couple hours ago. And it says, don't play games with it. Hurricane Florence weakens slightly as it churns toward East Coast. So some quick facts, fast facts. This is back when Florence was a Category 3 hurricane, so it's steadily approaching the U.S. East Coast, and the storm is forecast to be an extremely dangerous major hurricane when it nears the U.S. coast late Thursday and Friday. Now, as of 8 p.m. Eastern Time, the National Hurricane Center says Florence was centered about 335 miles southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina, and about 370 miles east-southeast of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and it's moving at about 16 miles per hour with maximum sustained winds of 115 miles per hour. Now, the storm's center will approach the coast of North Carolina or South Carolina in the hurricane warning area Thursday and Friday and move slowly near the coastline through Saturday, according to the National Hurricane Center. So the track has shifted somewhat south and west, throwing Georgia into peril as Florence moves inland. So more than 10 million residents in North and South Carolina and Virginia are under a storm watch or warning, and 5.25 million people are under hurricane warnings and watches, and another 4.89 million under tropical storm watches and warnings, according to the National Weather Service. So looking at Wilmington, North Carolina. So communities are along the Carolina coast prepared for the onslaught of Hurricane Florence, as forecasters Wednesday warned the monstrous storm could hesitate just offshore for days, punishing a longer stretch of coastline than previously feared before pushing its way inland. So the National Hurricane Center's projected track had Florence hovering off the southern North Carolina coast from Thursday night until landfall Saturday morning or so, about a day later than previously expected. And the track also shifted somewhat south and west, throwing Georgia into peril as Florence moves inland. So on Wednesday afternoon, Georgia's governor declared a state of emergency, and Governor Nathan Deal said in light of the storm's forecasted southward track after making landfall, I encourage Georgians to be prepared for the inland effects of the storm as well as the ensuing storm surge in coastal areas. And just this morning, Governor Nathan Deal of Georgia tweeted out, based on the latest 11 a.m. forecast for the southward track of Hurricane Florence after making landfall and acting on a recommendation from Georgia EMA officials, I have issued an emergency declaration for all 159 counties in Georgia. So North Carolina officials said they're closing the ports of Wilmington and Morehead City to commercial truck traffic Wednesday, and both facilities will be closed to traffic of any kind starting Thursday. So South Carolina State Ports Authority spokeswoman Erin DeHand says the Port of Charleston is closing to container traffic Thursday and may reopen Sunday, depending on the storm's track and overall conditions. Now, no storm watches or warnings are in effect for Georgia, but forecasters said there is an increased chance for tropical storm winds to reach Savannah. So on Wednesday morning, the storm was centered 335 miles southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina, and about 370 miles east-southeast of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And the Cat 3 storm is moving, now it is a Cat 2, at about 16 miles per hour with maximum sustained winds of 115 miles per hour, according to the National Hurricane Center's 8 p.m. Eastern Time advisory. Now, the center said life-threatening storm surge and rainfall is expected. They said on the forecast track, the center of Florence will move over the southwestern Atlantic Ocean between Bermuda and the Bahamas tonight and approach the coast of North Carolina or South Carolina in the hurricane warning area on Thursday and Friday and move slowly near the coastline through Saturday. So the National Hurricane Center said some fluctuations in the strength of the storm will be possible through Thursday morning. And they said, although slow weakening is expected to begin late Thursday, Florence is still forecast to be an extremely dangerous major hurricane when it nears the U.S. coast late Thursday and Friday. So the overall trend is exceptionally bad news, according to the University of Miami hurricane researcher Brian McNulty, since it smears a landfall out over hundreds of miles of coastline, most notably the storm surge. Now, Duke Energy said damage from Florence could cut off electricity to 3/4 of its 4 million customers in North and South Carolina, and the outages could last for weeks. Now, the country's number 2 power company said Wednesday that it's anticipating 1 million to 3 million homes and businesses could lose power for lengthy periods depending on the storm's track. So Duke Energy North Carolina President David Fountain said Florence is so massive and its potential for damage so extensive that people could be without power for a very long time. And Fountain said most of the storms are an inconvenience, but Hurricane Florence will be a life-changing event for many people here in the Carolinas. Now, the company said it's already shifting thousands of power workers from its Midwest and Florida regions and getting added workers from as far away as Texas. And Jeff Byard, an administrator with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, said this is not going to be a glancing blow. This is going to be a Mike Tyson punch to the Carolina coast. So with South Carolina's beach towns more in the bullseye, Ohio vacationers Chris and Nicole Rolland were trying to time their vacation from North Myrtle Beach to get the mainland. They said it's been really nice, also a little creepy, according to Nicole Rolland. She said, you feel like you should have already left. And South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster said Wednesday that more than 300,000 people had evacuated the state's coast ahead of Florence. He said the storm could bring more rain to the state than 1989's devastating Hurricane Hugo. And forecasters warned as much as 15 inches could fall in some portions of the state through at least Monday. Officials are concerned about the potential for widespread flooding, particularly in the northeastern part of the state. according to an official from South Carolina's Department of Natural Resources. And Alvin Taylor said Wednesday that an area of concern includes the town of Nichols, a small community that experienced devastating flooding following Hurricane Matthew in 2016. So as of Tuesday, more than 10 million residents in 3 states are under a storm watch or warning, according to the National Weather Service. There are 5.25 million people under hurricane warnings and watches, and another 4.89 million under tropical storm watches and warnings. So hurricane warnings are in effect from the South Santee River in South Carolina to Duck, North Carolina, and a hurricane watch stretches from Edisto Beach, South Carolina to the South Santee River. So a tropical storm warning is in effect from Duck, North Carolina to the North Carolina Virginia border, with a watch in effect from there to Chesapeake Bay south of New Point Comfort. So some actually said that they plan to stay put, but many were not taking any chances. And steady streams of vehicles full of people and belongings flowed inland Tuesday as North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper tried to convince everyone on North Carolina's coast to flee. And he said the waves and the wind of this storm is nothing like you've ever seen. Even if you've ridden out storms before, this one is different. Don't bet your life on riding out a monster. So Cooper said at least 50 shelters are open across the state. Up to 1 million residents have been asked to evacuate ahead of the storm. And he announced that officials were opening a large shelter at the Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum at Winston-Salem at 6 p.m. Wednesday, with a capacity of at least 1,000. So Hurricane Florence could inflict the hardest hurricane punch North Carolina has seen in more than 60 years. In 1954, the state was hit by a Category 4 storm, Hurricane Hazel. And Hazel, according to Jay Barnes, author of the books on the hurricane histories of both North Carolina and Florida, he said Hazel stands as a benchmark storm in North Carolina's history. We had a tremendous amount of destruction all across the state. And it looks like one of our members, Christine Bestian, just joined the chat. Hey, Christine. She's one of our Gold Star moms. Hope you are doing well today. So also, President Trump is urging those in Florence's path to act now to get out of its way. He told residents, don't play games with it, it's a big one. And in a videotape message from the Rose Garden, he said the federal government and first responders stand ready to assist. But even so, bad things can happen when you're talking about a storm this size. He's declared states of emergency for North and South Carolina and Virginia, opening the way for federal aid. And all 3 states ordered mass evacuations along the coast. Also, we just received a donation from Debo. Thank you so much for that $3.99 donation. He says, thank you for staying up to cover important news. Thank you so much, Debo, for your generous donation, for watching, and for being a regular viewer and donor. So good to have you here. That will definitely help us get to our next rally, which we are expecting next week. Now, that's not official yet, but from what we've heard, it will be in Phoenix, Arizona. So stay tuned for that. So also kind of looking at West Virginia and how they're preparing, and this is also from CBS News. So West Virginia agencies are mobilizing to respond to problems arising from the storm. The governor's office says in a news release, the Division of the Homeland Security and Emergency Management activated its Emergency Operations Center Wednesday, and the statement says 50 National Guard members are prepared to assist in locations across the state. Now, nearly 70 tractor-trailer loads of supplies have arrived at the Guard's 167th Airlift Wing in Martinsburg. Now, in June 2016, a series of thunderstorms pelted a wide swath of West Virginia. 9 inches of rain fell in 36 hours in some areas, leaving 23 dead statewide and destroying thousands of homes, businesses, and infrastructure. And the NWS forecast says up to 4 inches of rain is possible in parts of the state through the week. So as you can assume, Hurricane Florence is also affecting flights and car travel. So getting out of harm's way has proved difficult since airlines were canceling flights and motorists had a hard time finding fuel. So flight tracking service FlightAware said Wednesday that it was starting to see airlines file cancellations for airports in Florence's path. And as of early afternoon, total cancellations within, into, or out of the U.S. on Wednesday was 230, while 505 flights were canceled for Thursday, it said. So CBS News correspondent David Begnaud reported that people living in the Barrier Island community of Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, were bracing for a possible direct impact. And Philip Payne told Begnaud as he packed up his truck for the drive to Charlotte Tuesday with his fiance and 2 dogs. He said, "We've got a long trip. It's definitely been a learning experience, but we're definitely getting out of here. Better safe than sorry." And long lines formed at service stations, and some started running out of gas as far west as Raleigh, with bright yellow bags, signs, or rags placed over the pumps to show they were out of order. And some store shelves were picked clean. And Kristen Harrington, she shopped at a Walmart in Wilmington. She said there's no water, there's no juices, and there's no canned goods. Now, South Carolina said Wednesday night that it's planning to end the reversal of some interstate lanes that were switched to help move people away from the state's coast. And Department of Public Safety Director Leroy Smith told reporters that starting Thursday at 6 p.m., officers will close Interstate 26 lanes that had been switched from eastbound to westbound to move people away from the Charleston area toward the center of the state. So many officers on the road during lane reversals, manning each exit and ensuring drivers don't drive around barricades. And the change allows agencies like Smith's to pull back their officers when tropical storm force winds are expected to arrive in the state. So people were not the only ones evacuating to get out of the path of Hurricane Florence. 8 dogs and 18 cats from a shelter in Norfolk, Virginia, were sent to 2 shelters in Washington to make room for pets expected to be displaced by the hurricane. And the coastal surge from Florence could leave the eastern tip of North Carolina under more than 9 feet, 2.5 meters of water in spots, projections showed. So the Navy, Air Force, and Army were moving ships and aircraft out of harm's way, and thousands of Marines and their families evacuated from Camp Lejeune, leaving the rest to dig in ahead of what could be a direct hit. So Florence's projected path includes 6 power plants, pits holding coal ash and other industrial waste, and numerous hog farms. You guys heard me talk about that earlier, that could store animal waste in huge lagoons. And Duke Energy spokesman Ryan Mossier said operators would begin shutting down nuclear plants at least 2 hours before hurricane force winds arrive. And the National Weather Service said Florence will likely be the storm of a lifetime for portions of the Carolina coast. That's saying a lot given the impacts from hurricanes Diana, Hugo, Fran, Bonnie, Floyd, and Matthew. So there are also some other storms churning in the Atlantic. I know one of you was asking about those earlier. I think it was Scottsdale, Arizona. So Florence is the most dangerous of the 4 tropical storms in the Atlantic. Tropical Storm Isaac was expected to pass south of Puerto Rico, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and Cuba, while Hurricane Helen was moving northward away from land. And the National Hurricane Center announced Wednesday night that they're now monitoring a 4th storm in the Atlantic, which they have named Subtropical Storm Joyce. And it has a maximum sustained winds of 45 miles per hour and is expected to become a tropical storm and to strengthen by Thursday. Now, Joyce is centered about 870 miles southwest of the Azores and is moving southwest at 6 miles per hour. So federal officials begged residents to put together emergency kits and have a plan on where to go. And Byard, the FEMA official, says this storm is going to knock out power days into weeks. It's going to destroy infrastructure. It's going to destroy homes. And he said Wednesday it was imperative that locals heed evacuation warnings and that the time to flee Florence is now. He said, today's the day. It's time for our citizens to be a part of the team. Heed those warnings and evacuate if you're in one of those zones. And also, we are going to take a quick look at Twitter just to see what people are saying about Hurricane Florence, if there are any new updates. So this is definitely scary from USA Today. So one man is actually planning to ride out Hurricane Florence on his boat. So in Little River, SC, this was written from Little River, SC. So rolling up some plastic windows on his 46-foot cabin cruiser Wednesday, Maston Clower admitted he was nervous. A new weather forecast predicted Hurricane Florence changing paths to make a landfall near his marina at the border of North Carolina and South Carolina. And he said, I talked to some older people down here and they are worried. Now, Clower himself, though, is thus far undeterred. The 57-year-old from Hudson, North Carolina, is planning to ride out the powerful, destructive storm on his boat, named later, while it's docked at the marina located on the intracoastal waterway about 2 miles from the Atlantic shore of Cherry Grove Beach. He said, we're pretty far from the beach, but all water rises together. Now, he is a backhoe business operator back home in the mountains of North Carolina near Blowing Rock. Clower says he could and would disembark if the storm becomes too violent. So he is actually one of the dozens of boat owners at the Lightkeepers Village Marina who've chosen to keep their boats docked during the impending storm. And Steve and Jill Forsyth are among them. They removed their boat's canvas, tied double lines around the tall pilings, and secured the sails Wednesday in preparation for the storm. And Jill said, we have a 46-foot boat with a 5-foot draft, so there are just not a ton of places you can put it. So we're tying it up and hoping for the best. and setting sail for a new location was obviously not a reasonable option. She said, "We're not as fast as the Navy in outrunning a storm, but the predicted path of Hurricane Florence was enough to encourage her and her husband to leave the boat behind." She said, "We're not going to stay for this one. We're going to head west to get out of the flood zone and then head north." And George Rubis, who is an assistant dock master of the marina, said the marina has 125 ships, and half of those boats have been moved. He said it's a personal decision by each boat's owner what they decide to do in the face of a storm. So Eric and Barbara Coates of Little River plan to keep their boat docked and stay in a nearby condo. Eric Coates said, "We'll be staying here and hoping the boat is still here when it's done." Now, his wife said that they can see the boat, a 44-foot-long fast trawler, from their condo. And the couple have owned their boat since 2010. And Eric said he's been boating for 30 years. And he said, "I've been in some storms, but this one could be fun," which is a really interesting way to describe it. So many members of the surrounding neighborhood say they plan to stay in their residences, fortified by their experiences with prior hurricanes. And around the corner from the marina, Stacy and Billy Prince parked their vehicle to leave Wednesday afternoon. And Stacy said it was the change in forecast that led to that decision. She and her husband took jewelry, photo albums, videos, and some clothes, and their dog, Dixie. And Billy Prince said, "We're all here. We're from here all our lives. We've been through Hugo, Diane, Fran, all of them. We've never evacuated, but we're not going to play around with a Category 4. And they said they're headed for Florida, possibly Orlando. Stacy said, "I just feel sorry for people who are new here and don't have a clue." So Carly Suggs and Jesse Prince also were packed to leave Wednesday. The couple loaded their large pickup truck and SUV Wednesday from their Lightkeepers Village residence. For them too, it was the new forecast. And Suggs said, "That's what pushed us away." And we're going to take a look at some photos as people are preparing for Hurricane Florence on the East Coast. This says Henry Wright, 60, on the left, waits in downtown Charleston, SC, at a Charleston Area Transportation Authority bus stop, which serves as a hurricane evacuation bus stop, picking up people needed to be transported to the Charleston County Government Complex to be evacuated on buses to locations further inland, such as Columbia, South Carolina, prior to Hurricane Florence making landfall along the East Coast. And you can see he has his bags packed and ready to go. So also you can see tons of traffic here. It says Ugando Sample waits outside of her car as traffic backs up along Oyster Point Road as people attempt to pick up sandbags Wednesday. In Newport News, Virginia, the city was offering free sandbags to residents at the Public Works Operations Center as Hurricane Florence approaches. And police actually had to turn away some residents because of traffic congestion. And this is a satellite image provided by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. and Hurricane Florence churns through the Atlantic Ocean toward the East Coast. So also here's a gas station. This is in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and it sits with empty fuel pumps. And this is Phoebe Tesh. It says she covers her face as she talks about packing to evacuate from Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. And she definitely looks stressed out, understandably. So also interesting, a good plan here. It says patio furniture is seen in the pool as an effort to keep it from flying away as people prepare ahead of the arrival of Hurricane Florence on September 12th, 2018 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And this says James Waters of Wilmington, North Carolina, finishes surfing and stopped by to see his friends boarding up Jerry Allen's Grill at Wrightsville Beach in Wilmington, North Carolina. And here, Steve and Jamie Galloway are bagging sand to prepare for Hurricane Florence. And people are walking by the boarded up front windows of Bourbon Street in preparation for Hurricane Florence. This is in Wilmington, North Carolina. You can see the message there, pray for Wilmington, with crosses on the side and hearts on the bottom. Also, you can see sandbags surrounding homes on North Topsail Beach, North Carolina, as Hurricane Florence threatens the coast. And this says Kay Torrens in the middle stands with her husband Leo Torrens before leaving him at the Trinity Grove Nursing Home in Wilmington on September 12th. Definitely hard to say goodbye. And families board evacuation buses for a shelter in Raleigh, North Carolina, less than 2 days before Hurricane Florence is expected to strike Wilmington, North Carolina. Also, you can see more people building up their beach homes. This says Tim Avery pulls boards to the third story of a home as he prepares for Hurricane Florence at a home in Emerald Isle, North Carolina. And here, Camille Korzik walks under the 2nd Avenue Pier in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And this is one of the ones we read about in the story, Barbara Coates. It says Barbara Coates finishes up preparing her boat for Hurricane Florence at the Lightkeepers Marina in North Myrtle Beach. And Carly Suggs takes a pillow, towels, and other necessities to her car as she prepares to evacuate her North Myrtle Beach home. And this is Jane Evans. He is a 36-year-old fisherman of Swan Quarter, and he works on his 31-year-old fishing boat, Captain Drew, named after his 6-year-old son. It says, as Hurricane Florence moves in, a storm surge about 3 to 6 feet is expected for Swan Quarter, North Carolina, and around 6 feet for Ocracoke Island, with 12 to 20 inches of rainfall for the entire area. Hyde County, as well as several surrounding counties, are under mandatory evacuation. Evans will be traveling to Washington, North Carolina to stay with his girlfriend during the hurricane. And here, Billy and Stacy Prince and their dog Pixie begin packing up their vehicles to evacuate their North Myrtle Beach home on Wednesday, September 12th. And Billy Prince, who actually grew up in the area, said he stayed for past hurricanes but did not want to take the risk with Hurricane Florence. So moving on, more poolside furniture placed in the pool so that it does not blow away. This is in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And here, Michael Waldo, he's the owner of Waldo the Farmer Construction, and Robert McKean, they're covering the storefront windows of Catherine's Plus Sizes with plywood on Wednesday. And this is in Cobb Corners in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, of course preparing for Hurricane Florence. And here we haven't seen too many inside preparations. So Mark Lewis on the left, he's a conservator, and Alyssa Reynolds, associate registrar, are securing the painting The Shoppers by William James Glackens at the Chrysler Museum of Art on Tuesday, September 11th in Norfolk, Virginia. And it says that as Hurricane Florence approaches, staff members will be pulling priceless paintings off the walls near windows and skylights. Later on, the entrance to the museum will be sandbagged. So here, a high-def camera outside the International Space Station. And I know you guys saw this earlier as we went through all those pictures from the International Space Station. So captured a NASA view of Hurricane Florence at 7:50 a.m. Eastern Time today. And here, Mike Moore, who's a homeowner, evacuates ahead of the forecasted landfall of Hurricane Florence in Carolina Beach, North Carolina. And here, workers are actually taking boats out of the water in Winchester Harbor as Hurricane Florence approaches the coast of the Carolinas. And Kimberly Johnson is working to board the windows and doors of Tommy Condon's restaurant on Market Street in downtown Charleston as residents are preparing for Hurricane Florence to make landfall. Also, Bobby Vaughan on the top left and Butch Boudry on the right are preparing to attach wooden planks over the windows of an oceanfront home less than 2 days before Hurricane Florence is expected to strike Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. Also over at Casper's Marina in Swansboro, North Carolina, a lift operator is working to move boats to higher ground. And this is a hard story. Marge Brown, 65, is saying goodbye to her father, George Brown, who's 90, before he's evacuated from a healthcare home in Morehead City, North Carolina. And she says, he said, I'd like to stay and see what happens. I'm 90 plus, said Brown, who's a World War II veteran who says he survived a plane crash and severe burns from a laboratory where he once worked. So also, workers are preparing Charleston City Hall for the upcoming storm in Charleston, South Carolina. Another picture of workers securing Hurricane Florence. And this is from Tommy Condon's restaurant on Market Street in downtown Charleston, South Carolina. You can see this watermark right here. It says Hugo flood mark. It says the high watermark from the 1989 Hurricane Hugo shown on the wall of Tommy Condon's restaurant on Market Street in downtown Charleston, SC. Also, we just received a $14.99 donation from Kelsey Cook. Thank you so much for that. Who says great coverage. Thank you, Kelsey, for tuning in and supporting us. Really appreciate that. So also there have been warning flags placed out on the beach. This one says no swimming, and it is near Nags Head, North Carolina. And this is kind of the calm before the storm. Johnny Mercer's fishing pier juts into the Atlantic Ocean at sunrise on September 12th, less than 2 days before Hurricane Florence is expected to strike Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. And here you can see Lewis Patrick on the left and Sean Long on the right of Wilmington, North Carolina, waiting over an hour to check in at the New Hanover County Emergency Shelter at Trask Middle School in Wilmington on September 11th, 2018. And here you can see Jamie Waynick. She's an employee with New Hanover County taking a dog for a walk at the county emergency shelter held at Trask Middle School in Wilmington, North Carolina. And here is a picture. It says this U.S. Navy photo released September 12, 2018 shows a sailor as he heaves line during a heavy weather mooring evolution in preparation for Hurricane Florence on September 11, 2018 in Norfolk, Virginia. Some ships will not get underway due to maintenance and are taking extra precautions to avoid potential damage. And commanding officers have a number of options when staying in port. Some of these options include adding additional mooring and storm lines, dropping the anchor, and disconnecting some power cables. So I hope you guys enjoyed those images. It's definitely great to look at people's personal stories and just see how this is affecting different people in all walks of life, all ages. So definitely keep them in your thoughts and prayers. I'm praying for you guys as well and any family members that you may have. Hopefully they have already evacuated. Now that is going to wrap it up for tonight, but make sure to join us tomorrow. We will be bringing you a late morning stream and also an evening one as well, going late into the night as we continue to track Hurricane Florence. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Appreciate each and every single one of you. And once again, for Right Side Broadcasting Network, I'm Alyssa Ashe. Have a great night.